Hi, Barbara. We can see you well now. Are you on Chrome or are you still on the same browser? Can you hear me, Barbara?
Okay, so we're streaming now.
Okay,
Shankar is going to go through and invite people to speak who you need to.
great.
And we'll see if this works.
Alexis, I have given access to Rebecca.
Great, thank you. Let's see.
Check whether she can able to get my prompt.
She has to respond to a prompt where he invites her to speak. So I don't know if she's still logged on, but if so, Rebecca, you just need to click on that prompt and accept it.
Good afternoon, this is Candace. I just wanted to check if you can see and hear me okay?
Good morning, Candace. Thank you very much. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear and can see you as
Perfect.
well. Thank you so much
Excellent.
for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Candice. I hope you can also see me and hear me.
I can indeed.
Okay, good. You're in Kyoto?
No, I'm in Vienna, so there
In
seems to be
Vienna.
quite a delay I can see in the screen as it gets to Kyoto and then back to me here, I think.
Yes, I guess that's one of the issues we are testing. New ways of ancillary meetings.
So just on the technical side, Kate and Shankar, Rebecca is saying that she doesn't see a prompt at all. So I'm not sure what the... And I see that, weirdly enough, Barbara is with us here, but she is listed as viewer as well.
Alexis?
Oui.
Sorry. No, just agree that I put the two videos in the beginning back to back from the OHCHR and from Switzerland.
Okay, we've emailed them.
So is that coming back to me?
I'm
Is
so
that
sorry.
okay, Alexis?
Yeah, sure. That
We've
works,
emailed
Barbara.
the team.
Sorry. Okay.
To try and
And the
get
same for UNODC, the
Rebecca
two
as a
videos just
presenter,
after the
and we
video
haven't heard
by
back from them, but we'll
Gisle.
let you know if we do. And then in the meantime, we're just gonna keep trying to like promote her to a speaker. We should
Okay.
be sending prompts to her. I'm not sure if that's working.
Okay. Can you also try and send prompts to Gisle Gvanvig, who's in the viewer, and Michaela Markova, who's also a viewer, and Nicholas Caruso, who's also a viewer.
And just a question for the Q&A.
Yeah.
It's all online, no?
So the questions will appear online, but then we'll have to respond to them live.
Okay, so I have to...
I'll also be keeping an eye out for it.
You need to make sure you have your
Alexis, I have given a prompt to Nicholas. He has to accept it.
Okay. And Gisle and Michaela, and also Anna Giudice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have given access to Gisle.
Okay. Okay, so we have, I see Gisle is listed as a presenter now.
Good morning.
Hi, Gisle. Great, there we can have you on here. As you see, we are struggling a little bit because we're not able to get Becky up.
Right,
Alex,
yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I was
Fine.
able, yeah, I also received the prompt, so I was able to join as a speaker.
Great, good to
I
see you.
think there is
God
an
Hi,
see you as
issue
well.
with
Gisle. Good to see you.
Rebecca's line.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Because like Nicholas and I prompt, they can able to see, but Rebecca could not able to see that. I don't know what's
So,
happening.
Gisle, do you think you can maybe see with Becky how like the prompt would have appeared potentially on her screen if she could have? Because she doesn't seem to have received a prompt. Well, she hasn't
Sure.
seen it. Can I ask you to?
I'll just give her a call and talk to her.
Please ask Rebecca to log out from the in-event platform. Then once again log in with the link so that it may work.
Right.
And maybe ask her what browser she's using.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, Rebecca's on Chrome, so that's odd. Barbara, do you want to maybe wait 2 minutes before we start, or do you want to? I mean, I know we're already live, but just so we can.
Let's. If that's
Or
okay
otherwise
with
we
you,
can. Yeah. Or we can
Candice and
Sorry, go on. Kate, did you have?
So
Jan
before we
and
start
Gisle.
anything, I have to read a little prompt about COVID-19. So I'll go ahead and do that. That way, when
Yes,
we're ready to
that's great.
start, we can just go ahead and get started.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
Nicolas joined?
Yes, he did.
Or he has problems as well?
No, he's fine.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
As you are all
I mean,
aware, mitigating the risk of spreading
Can you
COVID-19
hear
during
me?
the Congress requires the cooperation of all of us. In line with the COVID-19 prevention concept elaborated by our host country, Japan, and the Secretariat, I would like to kindly remind you of the following precautionary measures. Please fill in the contact tracing information sheet that's found on your assigned table or seat. And please maintain at least 2 meters of physical distance from each other. Please wear your FFP2 mask at all times. You may take your mask off when speaking. Do not attend the meeting if you are unwell. If you feel ill during this session, please contact the medical personnel. These measures are in place for the safety of all of us. Thank you for your support and
Okay, thanks,
attention.
but then I can't hear you. I don't know why.
Alexis, the floor is yours. You can start the meeting.
Thank you very much, Shankar. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We are just experiencing some technical issues, so we will need a couple more minutes. We have our
I can't
moderator,
hear anything anymore,
Barbara,
which will be quite difficult to
who's on, as you can see,
manage.
but cannot hear us. So maybe Barbara, I will ask her to leave and come again. As moderation will be tricky to manage without sound. What I can do in the meantime is
I don't know what to do. It says speaker permission denied.
oh, Shankar, is that Barbara received a speaker permission denied notification?
For
I'm
whom?
not sure.
For who, Alexis?
Barbara Bernath, who we can see and we can hear her, but she can't hear us, and she just received a notification saying that her
internet connection is very poor. We have only one bar. That may be the issue. She may try to speak by disabling her video.
okay,
Yeah,
maybe
we're seeing like where we can see the connection for everyone, and everyone has the 3 green bars. We're just seeing 1 red bar for Barbara.
okay. Okay, so we what I will do is as we try to get Barbara back, I will share with you some introductory remarks which we have received. So we're very happy to organize this event on effective interviewing and investigations in partnership with the UNODC, OHCHR, the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, the Anti-Torture Initiative, as well as with the great support of Switzerland and of Norway. And to kick off this event, I'd like to share with you an introductory message by Ilse Brands-Keres, the Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights. So let me share this with you now.
Gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm honored to open this side event on effective interviewing. I'd like to thank Norway, Switzerland, the Association for the Prevention of Torture, the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, and the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime for their long-standing partnership with our office and for organizing this event with us. One of the many benefits of the effective interviewing model and its associated safeguards is that they significantly reduce the risks of torture, ill treatment, and coercion. They counter false confessions while eliciting reliable information for law enforcement investigations and critical information that is more likely to be admissible in court. Crucially, the use of effective interviewing can also help individuals perceive the state authorities, starting with law enforcement personnel, as concerned with public safety rather than repression. These techniques can therefore play an important role in upholding the role of state authorities as guardians and protectors of human rights. In turn, this can increase confidence in public institutions and help eliminate cycles of violence and mistrust. As part of its role in assisting governments to fulfill their human rights obligations, OHCHR actively supports the development of a universal protocol on effective interviewing techniques. Our office also advised on the development of a UN police manual that focuses on these techniques. We welcome today's discussion on why we need these principles across the world, exploring the benefits that this interviewing model brings for different jurisdictions. Exchanging diverse perspectives underscores that effective interviewing techniques and their attendant safeguards are not designed for particular regions, They can be implemented globally. Grounded in human rights, they are indeed universal. I'd like to thank the speakers and panelists for their participation and wish you a productive discussion. Thank you.
Great. So thank you very much for this message. Let me just see, I believe we might have Barbara Bernath back as a viewer. And may I ask the host to promote Barbara if possible, as well as Michaela Markova. And let's try again with Rebecca Milne, please. And now let me also share with you an introductory statement by Mr. Bernardo Stadelmann, who is the Vice Director of the Office of Justice of Switzerland, the Federal Office for Justice. So I will share with you some of his opening remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be able to say a few words to introduce this important event. On the part of Switzerland, my delegation very much welcomes the efforts to make the work of the police more efficient on the one hand, and to strengthen compliance with human rights obligations on the other. The nearly completed principles on non-coercive interviewing address both of these objectives and are going to play an important role in making the work of the police better in the future and to promote public trust in criminal justice and law enforcement institutions. Ill treatment or coercion are neither compatible with international human rights obligations, nor do they lead to better results in criminal investigations. Scientific evidence demonstrates that the use of coercive interviews is more likely to lessen the interviewee's motivation to share information. In cases where interviewees facing mistreatment comply with the demands of their interviewer, the information provided is of dubious reliability. Physical mistreatment, such as the deprivation of food or sleep, temperature manipulation, beatings, or even in some cases excessively long interviews, has also been proven to produce a cognitive impairment and as such to produce incorrect information and false confessions. Such coercive practices are tragic on several levels. They produce false charges and put innocent people in prison, while the real perpetrators continue to walk free. Moreover, the police officers themselves are violating the law, and public trust in the criminal justice system is damaged. The premise here is simple: a paradigm shift towards worldwide dissemination of the principle of effective non-coercive interrogations in the criminal justice system. However, developing the appropriate principles is not a simple process. This is especially true because scientific findings, existing standards and procedures, and international law have to be taken into account. I would like to commend the authors of the principles for the prudent, expert-led drafting process since 2017. Experts from a variety of fields and geographical contexts have put a lot of time and energy into their elaboration. Although the principles have not yet been published, work has already begun to their dissemination. Switzerland very much welcomes the fact that the paragraph on effective non-coercive interviewing will be part of the Kyoto Declaration. This initiative contributes to the criminal justice reform work stream of UNODC, as well as to the Sustainable Development Goals, in particular Goal 16, to provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. In Switzerland, too, discussions have already begun in the context of conferences for criminal justice authorities or in academia. I wish you an exciting event, and I'm sure we will hear a lot more about the principles on effective non-coercive interviewing in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And so I have now the pleasure, and apologies for not having introduced her before, of welcoming Candace Welsh from UNODC. Candace, thank you so much for being here with us today, live early morning for you in Vienna, and for participating to this important event with us.
Thank you so much, and it is a great pleasure to be here, early morning or not. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm pleased to welcome you on behalf of UNODC to this ancillary event on moving away from coercive practices, principles on effective interviewing for investigative authorities. It is held in the margins of the 14th UN Crime Congress. I would like to thank Norway, Switzerland, the Association for the Prevention of Torture, the Anti-Torture Initiative, the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, and the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights for organizing this event with us. In particular, I'm grateful to have heard the statements of Assistant Secretary General Ilse Brandes-Kjøres and the heads of delegation of Norway, Mr. Jan Ostad, and of Switzerland, Mr. Bernardo Stadelmann, as well as all of the experts who will participate in the panel discussion online or through video message. This event is a culmination of many years of partnership between our organizations and a large group of international experts, and it showcases the importance of bringing together civil society, member states, and the United Nations. UNODC has long-standing experience in supporting member states in setting standards, both binding and non-binding, in the area of policing and in the implementation of those standards. The UN Crime Congresses have always been an essential forum for the discussion and development of UN standards and norms on crime prevention and criminal justice. At UNODC, we are committed to continue providing a forum for the exchange of knowledge and experiences on effective measures to prevent and respond to crime while protecting human rights through our daily work and in the framework of the Crime Congress and the Crime Commission. As early as 1979, the Code of Conduct for law enforcement officials required law enforcement officers to fulfill the duty imposed upon them by law, by serving the community, and by protecting all persons against illegal acts, consistent with the high degree of responsibility required by their profession, as well as to respect and promote and protect human dignity and maintain and uphold the human rights of all persons. Evidence has shown that law enforcement practices that rely on confessions to establish guilt may end up trying to force those confessions out of persons who are suspected of having committed crimes. This creates very real risks of human rights abuses and can even lead to torture. Our experience shows that moving away from confession-based investigations towards evidence and intelligence-led policing, in addition to allowing for the better protection of human rights, also achieves the best results in terms of having successful investigations, prosecutions, and trials. We have followed with great interest the negotiations of the declaration of the Kyoto Crime Congress, and are pleased to see the commitment expressed therein by member states to use and share good practices on legally grounded, evidence-based interviewing methods, and to welcome the collaboration between practitioners, experts, and other relevant stakeholders on the elaboration of a set of international guidelines for non-coercive interviewing methods and procedural safeguards. At UNODC, we provide assistance to requesting member states on police reform, including on evidence and intelligence-led policing and on interviewing techniques, as part of our programs aimed at more efficient policing and at combating organized crime, corruption, terrorism, and trafficking in human beings. We develop technical tools and guidance, including in-person, online, and hybrid training tools. We also support countries in improving the protocols and training for those who interview victims and witnesses, including women, children, and victims of sexual and gender-based violence, to prevent secondary victimization, and to ensure successful investigations. In the last years, we've increased our efforts to build synergies with others. UNODC programs here in Vienna and in the field around the world are now partnering with key UN sister agencies such as OHCHR and the Department of Peace Operations to develop guidance and technical tools in relation to police reform. Improving policing and investigations is key to reaching Sustainable Development Goal 16 and to ensure that we leave no one behind by ensuring access to justice and the protection of human rights for all. By continuous efforts to advance the evidence-based approach to policing, we can work together to reach those goals. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the speakers and panelists today and wish you a fruitful discussion on this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Candace. I'll hand over to Barbara, who I believe has been able to join us. Barbara?
Hello, good afternoon for those of you who are in Kyoto, and good morning for the one in Europe, the panelists participating. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I know we have been already through the introductory and the welcoming speech, and I would really like our co-organizers and Candice Wells from UNODC for the important remarks, as well as Bernardo Stadelman and the Assistant Secretary General of the OHCHR for the important remarks. I'm the Secretary General of the Association for the Prevention of Torture, international non-governmental organization based in Geneva, and together with the Anti-Torture Initiative and the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, we have been supporting the development of a set of principles on non-coercive interviewing or effective interviewing, and the development of the principles is led by a steering committee composed of 15 experts and practitioners from different fields, and is co-chaired by Juan Mendes, the former Special Rapporteur on Torture, and by Mark Thompson, the former Secretary General of the APT. So it's really a pleasure to have this ancillary meeting today on improving efficiency and quality of investigations, principles on effective interviewing for investigative authorities. So we already mentioned the co-sponsor, and as it was said previously, we are really grateful for the excellent cooperation over the years. This event will really be an opportunity not only to present the principles to the delegations and observers to the Crime Congress, it will also enable us to discuss why there is a need to move away from an interrogation culture that is too often confession-driven and coercive, towards an interviewing technique that based on science and that is both more efficient and more humane. Combining this technique with legal and procedural safeguards will contribute to, and I quote here the paragraph of the Kyoto Declaration that is welcoming the principles, will contribute to improving the quality of criminal investigations, prosecutions, and convictions, end of quote. And in the end contribute to make society safer for all. So this event is quite intense and dense. So we will organize the discussion around two different sessions after the last introduction and welcoming remarks by Juan Mendes. The first session, we will hear practitioners from different regions and from UNODC, who will share with us why these principles are important. And the third session, which will be all live, we will focus on some aspects of the principles and in particular training. Then finally, we'll have a Q&A session and you can ask questions on the chat and we will try to respond with the 4 or 5 panelists that are live with us. And closing remarks by Norway. So I think the last speaker on the introduction is Juan Mendes, who is the former Special Rapporteur on Torture, the director of the Anti-Torture Initiative, and who basically is at the origin of the principle, of the idea of the principles. This will be a pre-recorded video.
Hello, my name is Juan Mendez, and I'm very pleased to be able to join you today, albeit virtually, for this important event. I am grateful to the event's co-sponsors and distinguished speakers for their collaboration and partnership in amplifying and promoting effective interviewing. As co-chair of the steering committee for the development of the principles on effective interviewing for investigative and information gathering authorities, it is my privilege to provide a brief introduction to the principles and to share with you some of the areas that the principle will elaborate and provide guidance on. Although the prohibition of torture is absolute, as we know, it frequently occurs during the interrogation of suspects and for the purpose of obtaining a confession and solving crime. Around the world, false confessions and unreliable information arising from torture, ill treatment, and coercion during questioning by authorities have led to wrongful convictions, wasted resources, and miscarriages of justice. To address this, in my last thematic report to the United Nations as a special rapporteur on torture in 2016, I called for the development of a set of international standards for interviewing and application of legal and procedural safeguards by state law enforcement, intelligence, administrative, and military officials. The principles we are developing help to answer this call. They integrate established human rights law with a robust and growing scientific research on the question methods that most effectively elicit accurate and reliable information from interviewees, namely rapport-based, non-coercive methods for interviewing. The guidance provided in the principles not only lead to better operational outcomes, but enhances civic trust in institutions as well as respect for dignity and respect for human rights. Broad in their scope and flexible in their application, the principles apply to all interviews by information gathering officials and are suitable for uncomplicated interviews as well as for interviews that are more complex. Of particular note, the principles cover the period from the first contact between state authorities and a potential interviewee to the conclusion of all of their interviews, with the implementation of relevant safeguards continuing through the conclusion of all related legal proceedings. The guidance provided in the principles is intended for policymakers, interviewing professionals, and authorities involved in the conduct of interviews, including law enforcement and intelligence gathering agencies. Our goal is for the principles elaborated in the document to be incorporated into states' domestic laws, regulations, practices, and training. The first principle underscores the robust scientific research, established legal norms, and professional ethics that effective interviewing is founded upon. Principle 2 puts forward the comprehensive process for obtaining accurate and reliable information while respecting human rights before, during, and after the interview. It delineates the relevant legal safeguards that should be implemented throughout the interview and presents practical guidance on the conduct of the interview. Principle 3 imparts that authorities must be mindful of addressing the needs of people in situations of heightened vulnerability based upon risk factors such as age, gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, disability, or religion. The fourth principle emphasizes that effective interviewing is a professional undertaking that requires specific training, which must be continually updated and refined. Principle 5 discusses the importance of transparency and accountability through the accurate record keeping of all interviews and allowing for external oversight, independent monitoring, complaints mechanisms, and redress. The final principle, Principle 6, provides guidance on the successful implementation of the principles, including the systematic review of domestic legal frameworks, the protection of the independence of the judiciary and other criminal justice actors, and the broad dissemination of the principles. Ultimately, these principles will assist authorities around the world to improve the effectiveness and fairness of their investigations. By moving away from a culture of accusatory, coercive, and confession-driven practices, states can draw upon the principles' best practices and help ensure that the presumption of innocence is respected, that only guilty persons are convicted, that wrongly accused persons are freed, and that justice is served for victims and for society at large as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. And I think this was important to have an overview of the different principles. And with this, the first part, introduction, is closed. And we would like now to move to the second moment of this meeting with comments and statements from practitioners about why the principles will make a difference. As we have some technical problems, we will continue with videos, and we will share now a video with a conversation between Gisle Kvanvig from the Norwegian Center for Human Rights with members of the steering committee and the advisory council of the principles on the utility of this principle. It is worth noting that the principles arrived to the use of effective interviewing, while in some countries it is interchangeable with the term investigative interviewing. So we will listen to Solomon Araze from Nigeria, Lilian Stein from Brazil, and Suzanne Jabour from Lebanon. And we will continue after with 2 videos from UNODC officers, also on the importance of effective interviewing. And we will listen first to Tom Parker, based in Nigeria, and then Nawid Riaz, based in Kazakhstan.
My first question about these principles that you contributed to, of course, is about their utility in your part of the world.
Well, thank you very much, Gisle, for having me. I am very, very excited about us adopting this principle in the African sub-region. It's going to be very, very impactful because when you train officers, to understand the basic principles that are involved in investigative interview, it reduces the incidences of distrust. Policing is about trust. Once the people are able to trust you to know that you are prepared to do the right thing, they will be able to cooperate with you. It will reduce crime. It will elicit, confidence from the police officers. It will also, encourage the people to be able to give you useful information that you will use in your investigation. So it's something that we should commend to the African sub-region. Because once we are able to get it right, the people they will trust their police forces more. Just as I mentioned earlier, in October last year, we had something that has never happened, in the history of policing in this country, where the citizens, they took laws into their hands and went after police officers, burning police stations, attacking police officers. And the police officers virtually abandoned, their mandate of providing, security and safety for their various communities. So I am of the opinion that if we are able to get these principles embedded in, the training curriculum of most of these African countries, these issues of that we went through in October in Nigeria especially, wouldn't have occurred and will not occur. Presently, they are talking about police reforms. This is one principle that has to be, embedded in that police reforms. If we are able to put this into the police reforms, I think, the contribution of your organization and all the resources you put, in place to assist, we'll now start seeing the benefits, of those, contributions.
And as a former Inspector General, officers well, and I'm sort of wondering if there's anything about these principles that you think make officers more ready or willing to kind of accept them. If there's anything about this kind of approach to investigations and interviewing that is more acceptable, let's say, than other methods that have been tried in the past.
Well, you see, human beings are always very, very reluctant to change. They will see it as as a bit intrusive, initially. But once they are able to imbibe it, it makes their job easier. Their investigation will be seamless. They will be able to, with the recording procedures that this principle is advocating, they will be able, going into trial within trial, will be minimized. The period of investigation will be reduced. The period prosecution will also, aid the investigation that they are going to do. So the human rights, principles that are embedded in these techniques is such that will be beneficial to the police, the law enforcement officers. And that is why I'm really, really excited that we should encourage them, we should train them. I don't think there's any law enforcement officers who want to abridge the rights of the people, but sometimes they don't know. And once you don't know, something that you don't know, you are always very reluctant to accept them. You think, oh, these people are coming up with a new idea, scientific approach to investigation. They are trying to take over our jobs. But then, in the end, once you are able to accept it, you discover that it makes your job easier. So, as an Inspector General of Police, I hated the idea of custodian approach to investigation, keeping people in custody before you get evidence of the offenses they have committed. So if you're able to get the evidence, then you now bring a suspect. Then the period of pre-trial detention is reduced, is minimized. Sometimes it's not necessary. And once it is not necessary, you discover that corruption you are able to halt the incident of bails. When you talk about granting people bail before you conclude your investigation, you see, so a lot of things will fall in place. And I think it is something we have to encourage our law enforcement officers in Africa to adopt, because it will make the people, they will now start winning the hearts and minds of the people. And once you win the hearts and minds of the people, it makes your job easier. Information flow comes in. People are willing to trust you. They are willing to give you information that will aid your investigation and prosecution. So I think that is just all we need in this country, or in the African sub-region, to be able to get, the law enforcement officers, liked by members of the public. Presently, there is this us against them. The people, they see law enforcement officers as people who are always there to infringe on their rights. That is not supposed to be what law enforcement officers are supposed to do. Instead, it's supposed to be complementary. The citizens, this community partnership approach to investigation is supposed to be there. Presently, it is absent. With the principles, I think we should be able to get this one sorted out once and for all.
My name is Lilian Stein. I am a psychology professor in Brazil. I have been teaching and researching in the field of eyewitness psychology, investigative interviewing for the past almost 3 decades. And I've been also teaching and training the topic of eyewitness memory and investigative interviewing to several groups in the Justice Department in Brazil, police forces, and so forth.
Thank you, Lilian. So we have known each other and worked together for quite a number of years now. So Brazil, investigative interviewing, what's going on?
Well, first of all, I think we have to make sure that we understand that investigative interviewing is an evidence-based, non-coercive technique to gather reliable information. So I would say the beauty of this method, which is now, has about, 3 decades or even more of substantial research towards the effectiveness of this method of interviewing. So investigative interviewing is a method of collecting reliable information in any setting, including criminal cases, counter-terrorist cases, and intelligence cases, any situation. So right now in Brazil, although we've been working on this field for quite some time, including trying to build capacity, our police forces and other people in the justice, other professionals in the justice department, we still have a long way to go. So I was very pleased when in 2008 and 18, the Norwegian Center of Human Rights was able to come to Brazil along with Norwegian police members, and we were able to conduct a full training for police officers and federal police agents here in Brazil. I think this is a collaboration that helps spread the word of science and help train and better equip our security agencies, our police forces to do the best, because right now we have a lack of evidence-based training in interviewing in most of the parts of Brazil. So this is a crucial point.
In 2019, Restart Center, in collaboration with the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, introduced the investigative interviewing approach to 82 Lebanese law enforcement officers and military divisions with the aim of integrating these skills later into their investigative practices, deemed as pioneering initiative in the MENA region. 18 out of the 82 trainees were selected to take part of TOT program based on their classroom performance in the initial module. The capacity building program confirmed that the manner in which law enforcement officials and other investigative bodies shall carry out interviews must reflect fundamental principles such as the absolute prohibition of torture and ill treatment under international law, as well as core human rights standards, including the interviewee's rights to dignity and physical and mental integrity. This training was exhaustively discussed with and highly supported by the Lebanese Minister of Interior. The trainees who attended the workshops recognized the great value that was brought to their learning. They also discussed the challenges they will be facing when shifting toward this new practice. Therefore, in order to encourage the initiated culture change, we supported the program in the provision of relevant textbooks and materials. Some of the key recommendations resulting from this program were building a group of national supervisors on investigative interviewing amongst the TOT participants who will be benefit from technical guidance and follow-up by international experts. Establish a judicial police unit in Lebanon who has both the knowledge and the skills to implement investigative interviewing into its daily operations. Integrate investigative interviewing into the curriculum of the Internal Security Forces Educational and Training Institute to ensure systematic training and sustainability of the implementation of this approach. Implement a program for the exchange of best practices between Lebanese law enforcement personnel and experienced practitioners of investigative interviewing from the Norwegian and the British police. Develop a comparative study measuring the impact of the implementation of investigative interviewing by the Lebanese law enforcement. These key recommendations form the vision for the continuity of this program in close cooperation with relevant Lebanese authorities and the Norwegian Center for Human Rights. Thank you.
Thank you. It was very interesting to listen to this experience from the national perspective, from Nigeria, Brazil, and Lebanon, about why it's important and why it's important to have training. We would like now to change a little bit perspective and look at the importance of scientific research that is backing the effectiveness of effective interviewing. And I have the pleasure of giving the floor to Becky Milne, who is a professor of forensic psychology at Portsmouth University and who has years of experience and research on investigative interviewing. Becky, from your perspective and your experience and your work as a psychologist, can you let us know a bit more about the research and the scientific evidence that are backing effective interviewing?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning and good afternoon, Kyoto. And thank you for inviting me to speak today. I have been, I've got over 100 publications over the last 25 years in this area, and I've been training police officers in the UK and around the world. And one of the things that I'm continuously asked is, how do we get good investigators and good decision makers? Now, it's as simple as this. Justice is about getting decisions right. Decision makers across the criminal justice system have to be informed. Now, if we think about it, decisions are only as good as the information you feed into it. Information is only as good as the questions you ask and the communication that you utilize to gather that questions. So poor questions and communication results in poor information, results in poor decisions. So it is very, very important for us to understand how we get this accurate and reliable information that Lillian Stein just mentioned. So getting accurate and reliable information from someone across the justice system, be they a witness, be they a victim, be they a suspect, is very difficult to do. And it's difficult for a number of reasons. The first main reason is because we need to teach people to talk in a different way. If we use our everyday conversation, we ask very closed and leading questions. That's how we are brought up. So we have to train investigators to speak differently, to speak with lots of open questions. That's the first thing. The second reason getting accurate and reliable and fulsome and relevant information is difficult to do is because human memory is a very, very fragile process. It is so fragile. It's easy to contaminate. It's easy to manipulate. It's easy to change and to alter. By just changing one word in a question, research shows that you can alter the response you get. So it's really important for investigators across the justice system, for decision makers across the justice system, to understand that the questions they ask themselves also can contaminate this human memory. And this human memory is where all that wonderful information is about what has happened, who may be culpable. And so we have to be very careful. So these wonderful principles and the guidance that has been put forward is based on research, based on evidence, and of how best to gather this information. And we know through research on communication and memory that the best way to gather information is actually not asking questions really at all, but asking people to give a free narrative, to control the flow of information. And this is really, really important, especially with those who are vulnerable. Now, we keep hearing this word vulnerability, and there's a really good question about what does vulnerability mean? What is the definition of vulnerability? Now, I train police officers, advanced interviewing techniques across the world, and we have a really interesting discussion about vulnerability. And really, vulnerability comes from two areas. You have internal vulnerability, individual factors. You are vulnerable because you are young in years, children. You are old in years, the older adults. You have a learning disability. You have some form of mental disorder, be they witness, victim, suspect, or source. You also have vulnerability, which are external factors. So you are vulnerable because of the circumstances that you are in. And this is really important. I advised the British police on two of the terror attacks that we had in the UK, the two that we had on London Bridge. And one of the things that we were creating is a triaging system to make sure when we interview our witnesses to these terror attacks that the interviews were trauma informed. Now, the process that is put within these guidance is the same. It's the same whether we're interviewing a regular adult or someone who is vulnerable. When we have someone who is vulnerable, we just have to be more careful about how we pose our questions and how we interact with them. So even if we've got a regular adult who is traumatized because of witnessing a terror attack, then we have to have skillful, specialist interviewers to manage that within the interview room, to gather the information we require, but also to make sure that we do it in a trauma-informed way. And that is so important. So what I wanted to really say is these wonderful guides and principles is a research base, it is evidence base, and it is mindful that this is the best way to interview witnesses, victims, suspects across the justice system. And it's mindful of those who are vulnerable, whether they're internal vulnerabilities or external vulnerabilities. And that's what's really important. And if we can adapt the process and we adapt it for specific individuals, and it's all about assessment, then this will allow us to give everyone a voice. This will allow us to have investigators and interviewers gathering good quantity and quality information to make informed decisions. They will do it in a way which is in accordance with research, and they will do it in a way so that we have justice. It will give everyone a voice, regardless of who they are. This is a basic human right, is to allow everyone to have a voice. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky, for sharing your great experience regarding effective interviewing based on your research and your training. I think your point about the objective of interviewing is to collect information that enables good decision making that in the end allows justice. And also thank you as well for putting the emphasis on the vulnerabilities, which is so important. We can now have videos, but before that, I would like to respond to the question from Anat Horowitz on the chat. And just to clarify that we are now talking on these principles on effective interviewing for investigative authorities that are close to a finalization, but are not completely finalized and adapted yet. So we cannot share it today with the link, but this is a question of days and weeks. So we would be happy to share it as soon as they are adopted. If you share your email, and we can see how to do that afterwards. But we, as Juan Mendes explained in his video, the draft is pretty finalized with the 6 principles that he presented. And there is also one principle on vulnerabilities, just to add that. I would now like to share a video with from statements from 2 UNODC officers who are sharing their views on the importance of effective interviewing. And we will first listen to Tom Parker, who is based in Nigeria, and then we will hear from Nawid Riaz, based in Kazakhstan.
Traditionally, in law enforcement investigation, a huge amount of evidence was placed on getting a confession from the suspect, often to the exclusion of other lines of investigation, such as the collection and exploitation of forensic evidence. And we see that in a lot of court cases around the world in the countries we work in. So a huge amount of priority given to getting that confession, and as a result, a lot of pressure is placed on investigators to get that confession from a suspect, and that can often lead to bad practice and abuse. There's a huge amount of research that's been done in countries like the United States and the UK on the role that confession can often play in miscarriages of justice, even in the most serious of offences. And over the past 20, 30 years, in fact, a new practice in investigative interviewing has evolved, what we call active listening, rapport-building interviews. In the UK, it's referred to as the peace technique. And this is an approach that is pretty commonplace now in many modern police forces, where the investigator, instead of trying to pressure a suspect into a confession, takes a slightly more passive role, a more reactive role to what the suspect is saying. They listen to the story, they take the information that the suspect provides, and then they test that against the facts. They let the suspect tell their own story, share their own version of events, and then they can take that version of events and test it against the facts. That enables us to build a far sounder case and to determine whether or not the suspect is indeed telling the truth or maybe constructing some form of false narrative. As a result of this approach, there's a number of benefits. The first is you avoid the sort of bias of coming into the interview room with your own ideas and your own ideas of what happened, which can often wrongly drive an interview down a path that's not very productive, impose the prejudices of the interviewer on the interview process. It also allows you an opportunity to hear the suspect's point of view, to have them share information that perhaps might not initially seem particularly relevant, but might over time turn out to be quite crucial to an investigation. So as a result, you end up with a richer interview experience, ultimately more evidence that you can check against your other evidential streams. And importantly, the rights of the detainee and the suspect have been observed. The process is more likely to be fair and accurate. And as a result, prosecutors are able to build better cases and get better results in court.
We in UNODC recommend what we call investigative interviewing as the best strategy to employ. And there are very good reasons for that. It may be painstaking, it may take time, however, it brings results, and the right results. And the reason that we are firm advocates of this form of interviewing is based on humane principles, on the foundation of democratic policing, and it enables the interviewer, most important of all, to elicit the right information that will result in investigations being better informed as to further lines of inquiry that may need to pursue, and also or to tie up the information with any evidence that needs to be adduced from the interviews of suspects, witnesses, or victims. This method works, and it ensures that evidence is reliable. It ensures the integrity of evidence, most important of all, and it ensures that the people that you have interviewed, that you develop a level of trust and confidence, because don't forget, then in addition to providing possible evidence, as law enforcement officials, it's crucial that you are gathering intelligence, and in whatever interactions that we are involved in the sphere of investigations, we are also always gathering intelligence. And the people that you're interviewing may provide you with absolutely crucial intelligence that might not be useful in your current investigation, but it may prove to be something that you can build upon for any subsequent operations that may need to be mounted. So use this as a basis for developing further intelligence, because the fight against the crime never stops. This can only be done through the proper tried and tested ways, and this model of investigative interviewing is tried and tested. It works. Please give it a try.
Thank you very much. I think these testimonies and statements and contribution from Becky Milne, I think really show that effective interviewing is making a difference and is the way to go to collect reliable information and in the end have safer societies. But what is important, and we will now move to the last session, which will be a live session, is how we can go forward with implementation and what are the key elements of these principles. And we will first listen to UNODC, who has started to work on training and developing an e-learning module. And I will give the floor to Nicola, sorry, I have to find his name, to Nicola Federico Caruso, who is UNODC e-learning program manager of the global UNODC e-learning program, who will present us the work done by UNODC in this regard. Federico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Barbara. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
yes. Perfect. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. While the video plays, which will show a few of the parts of our work we're actually developing at the moment. First of all, as Barbara mentioned, I'm Nicolas Caruso. I'm responsible for the UNODC e-learning program. UNODC, together with the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, is developing a set of e-learning modules, self-paced e-learning modules, which will be available hopefully in the coming months. This set of e-learning models are developed at the moment in English, which is composed by 3 modules, and hopefully we'll have these models available in other languages later this year. Of course, to reach as many officers as possible. So the models that we are developing at the moment are designed to teach investigating officers on actually what is an investigative interview, how using this methodology of enhancing how this methodology enhances the efficiency of the investigative work that they're doing, the daily work, and also how to apply the basics of principles of this methodology in their daily practice. So it's important to mention, we're not only providing the necessary knowledge and the basic, let's say, knowledge on this specific topic, but at the same time, we're providing all the elements necessary to actually acquire the most basic skills on how to conduct an investigative interviewing. How are we doing this? Actually, we're developing several scenarios with different animations, as you can see from the screen at the moment. These scenarios actually replicate the different situations that the officers might face during their daily work, and we only not explain what to do and what not to do during these specific situations. But most important is we are actually why this should do so. I mean, apply these skills and this what we're providing them through the different scenarios in order to improve their work. I mean, we have, as you see from the videos that we just played, we have several different features, tools, exercises that will, of course, enhance the work of the different officers worldwide. These features, for example, just to mention, we have some exercises where the different officers were able to actually provide their past experiences in a specific situation, and then after they provide these experiences through the as an assignment, they will be able to compare these experiences with the best practices. So then they will learn what they have done right or wrong in the previous work while conducting an interview. So these models that, as I mentioned, a set of 3 models are going to be launched on the UNODC e-learning platform. The models are going to be, at the moment, of course, with the current situation, will be launched in there, and all the components that will be additional to creating a more comprehensive package at the moment will not be launched because they will require face-to-face training. And when the situation allows, we will create a blended learning approach with face-to-face training and online training. So we're using the best of both worlds, the online training and face-to-face training. But of course, this will be launched when the situation normalizes. So at the moment, any other component of this comprehensive training package will be done also on the online sphere. And I want to emphasize, this is very, I mean, it's a very good to emphasize that the online capacity building activities can reach a vast number of participants that in contrast with face-to-face training, that to reach this amount of participants, we really need a lot of course of different costs. Because I mean, it costs a really lot of money to reach the amount of users that with a simple and limited resources we can reach with the online platforms. In this case, the UNODC e-learning platform. I don't want to take any more of your time. Of course, just to mention that once this model will be launched on the platform, we'll be having a launching event and so of course we will able to provide all the updates in the coming months. Hopefully this model will be launched in May. So we'll be in contact with most of you and invite you to this launching event of these models. We're very excited that these models are going to be finally launched. As I mentioned, this is a work of UNODC in cooperation with the Norwegian Center for Human Rights. So we hope to see you, many of you, at the launch event. So thank you very much, and have a nice Sunday.
Thank you very much, Federico, and congratulations to UNODC and the Norwegian Center for Human Rights for setting up these 3 modules. And it was great to have a look through the video, and I think this seems very, very interactive, with the aim not only to inquire knowledge, but really to influence skills and attitudes of the interviewers. So we are really looking forward to the launching event in May, and we will follow up on that as well. I would now like to give the floor to Gisle Kvanvig from the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, that we have seen now through the e-learning modules, but also from the video from Brazil, Lebanon, and Nigeria. The Norwegian Center is not only involved actively in the drafting of the principles, but also has years of experience in training police officers and law enforcement around the world. Gisle, you have the floor to share with us the importance of training and cooperation to change the practices. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And thank you to the organizers for this event as well, and our partners. We've already heard from Solomon Raza, the former Inspector General of the Nigerian Police, as well as Lillian Stein in Brazil and Suzanne Jabour in Lebanon. And I think I just want to say that we started working on this with the Norwegian police about 10 years ago. We started with 2 very small projects in Vietnam and Indonesia. We didn't really know what to expect by taking a model that originated in the UK and was adapted to sort of fit Norwegian circumstances, and take it into widely different cultural and linguistic and political contexts. But the response was immediate, and by the end of 2021, we will have cooperation in approximately 20 countries across Africa, Latin America, Asia, and Europe. And we will also have launched UN police manual. So we're also collaborating with the Department of Peace Operations and their police division. So manual for police officers under UN command in field missions. We, of course, have the video that Nicholas so eloquently presented, which we're very much looking forward to, and which should also make its way to the public in the next couple of months. And we recently launched cooperation with the UN Office on Counterterrorism. So altogether, over just the past 10 years, we've seen an incredible demand for this. And I think our main experience, if we're looking at our initial expectations, has been that this is extremely welcome. It's not sensitive at all. We expected it to be somewhat sensitive, given that that we're working with police, intelligence, and military. But on the contrary, this has been a sort of easy subject to teach and train on together with our partners in these different countries. And just a final note on the principles themselves, the principles on effective interviewing, is that they will be a very welcome normative anchoring for a practice that is spreading across the globe very, very fast. So thank you to you all for your contributions and your work and your effort. And that's it from me for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gisle. I think the Norwegian Center for Human Rights, through this 10 years of experience, has been really key in contributing to the development of this practice. And thank you for sharing your experience in the field. And I think it's quite interesting, your remark about the fact that because it's practical and it makes sense, it's not a sensitive issue to raise, and it leads to support from the police, law enforcement, and the military. So we have a great cooperation, and we are looking forward to continuing it, especially with all this material that is being developed, including the one you mentioned with UN Police. That is quite interesting. I would now like to give the floor to my colleague, Alexi Komnenos, who is a legal advisor at the APT and has been involved over the past 2 years in the development of the principles. And one of the key features of the principles is the combination between this technique and this method, together with the fundamental legal and procedural safeguards. Alexi, could you highlight how the principle combine these two together and emphasize the importance of safeguards? You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be with you today. So as you know, and as you've heard from many of our speakers today, the APT has been involved since 2017, coordinating the development of these principles together with the Norwegian Center for Human Rights and the Anti-Torture Initiative. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank both UNODC and OHCHR for their valued support and collaboration on the elaboration of these principles. As you have heard, these principles are the unique integration of effective and scientifically grounded interviewing techniques with the implementation of associated legal and procedural safeguards. And the effective implementation of safeguards from the moment of arrest or deprivation of liberty and throughout the interview process is and has been at the center of our work here at the APT. Such safeguards include, for example, the right to receive information about rights, the right to access a lawyer or a doctor during police custody, the right to notify a third person of one's detention. Apologies. And more concretely, ways that APT has been working on the implementation of these safeguards include, in Madagascar, a work in close collaboration with the national police to develop new tools and procedures for police custody, such as standard custody registers and a letter of rights. In Brazil, we work with the judiciary and other actors of the criminal justice system to ensure that all persons in police custody are brought before a judge within 24 hours of their arrest. And in Thailand, we work with legal professionals and civil society to provide effective legal aid in the first hours of police custody. And I think it's important here to point out that our work at the APT is also evidence-based. And in 2016, Professors Carver and Handley published an independent academic study entitled "Does Torture Prevention Work?" And in that book, which was commissioned by the APT, they established that, yes, torture prevention does work, but more importantly for our purposes today, they established that it is the effective implementation of legal and procedural safeguards in the first hours of custody that has the greatest incidence on reducing the risks of torture and other ill treatment. And so our preventive approach is based on risk reduction, and it's based on evidence. And this is why safeguards are key. In addition, as some of our distinguished speakers have said today, creating a non-coercive environment is a crucial element of effective interviewing. It allows the interviewer to develop trust and rapport with the interviewee, and therefore increases the likelihood of eliciting reliable information. In that sense, the effective implementation of safeguards from the first moment of contact with authorities and throughout the interview process does not only contribute to torture prevention, it also contributes to more effective interviewing, a stronger criminal justice process, and the rule of law. And so before we move on to the Q&A, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all of the co-organizers of this event, and of course, Switzerland and Norway for their continued support. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Gary Hill and his team who have made the organization of these ancillary events possible. I'll be here as well as all of the participants who you've heard live for the Q&A, and I hand it back to Barbara. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexis, for this important information and clarification about the role of safeguards and the combination with the effective interviewing technique. We now have some time for questions and answers. Participants are able to type a question on the Q&A and the chat, and we will take them. We have Becky, who is live with us. We have Candice Welsh from the UNODC, and we have Gisle from Norwegian Center and Nicola from UNODC, together with other colleagues from UNODC Vienna as well. So I don't know if there is a question on the chat, but maybe I can start with the first question to maybe both UNODC e-learning and Gisle about the modules. Federico, you explained that these were online training. Hopefully at some point it will be blended learning, so combined face-to-face with online. But is it really a self-learning, so individual members go through these modules, or is there a part of as a service or as a team, different members can also work together, or is there possibilities to have chat and interaction with others, with the trainers, but also with other learners?
Barbara,
I don't know.
I just see that Nicolas is not a presenter anymore, so maybe Gisle can start, and maybe if I can ask the hosts of the event if they can promote Nicolas back to presenter. Thank you.
Or Anna or somebody from his colleague.
Yeah.
Yes, Gisle, maybe you can
Sure.
start.
Thank you very much for the question, Barbara. It's a self-learning experience, but it can be used obviously also in a sort of blended learning module. What this e-learning course will do is basically run you through the basics of investigative interviewing, which is in accordance with what the principle calls effective interviewing. And we are going to pilot this in a couple of countries this coming spring to see what kind of experiences we can get in terms of having both live presentations and interactions with the different practitioners participating in the training. But in the future, we also see it as an excellent sort of first step to familiarize yourself with these different techniques.
I think we have Nicolas back if you want to add anything.
Thank you, Alexis. No, well just Giselle mentioned before. Yes. Sorry, put my camera better. Yeah, the models are, as Giselle just mentioned, they're self-paced. Of course, we are trying, of course, as I mentioned before, to have a blended approach when times allows, but also be able at the upcoming months, once the models are launched, also have these complements with other online capacity building activities that are going to go through the online University e-learning platform or other platforms as well. So just to mention that as well. So at the moment, what we presented today is completely self-paced. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Federico. I think Anna Giudice from UNODC would also like to add something. There's a problem with the video, but you can speak without the video.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, colleagues. I just wanted to add that the e-learning can be part of existing or future technical assistance programs. So we have a number of countries that already work with us and receive e-learning support, so they would be able to access these modules. And we also, deliver tailor-made programs with in many countries where we can include e-learning or blended learning as a part of technical assistance program. And of course, as Nicholas was saying, if resources are available, we will be able also to translate and adapt to local contexts in different countries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this was important to add as well. There is a question on the chat whether the e-learning will be available to the public, so accessible to anyone, or whether you will have to be registered. I don't know who wants to answer.
So I can answer that. Well, the moment where we are having discussions on how we will launch this, it will be accessible to everyone on the public area of the UNODC e-learning platform, or if we have to go through several filters within the platform in order to receive previous approval from us in order to access the model. So with this, we'll still on discussion on how this will be launch on the platform itself, but of course further information will be provided in the upcoming weeks and months once we finalize the model and we complete it and we were able to launch it.
Thank you very much, Nicholas, for this clarification. I'm sorry for having called you Federico all the time. Alexi, you want to add information publicly about how we will proceed with sharing the principles once adopted?
Yes, I mean, sure. As I said in the chat, we can you can write to me directly on the private chat option. So if you click on my name, you can send me a private message and share your email with me if you're interested in receiving it. But what I will also do is share on the chat my contact, as well as the contact of two of the organizers from UNODC and the Norwegian Center, respectively, so we can follow up with beyond this event to exchange information. So I'll do that.
Thank you very much, Alexi, for sharing your email as well. And please don't hesitate to be in contact with us. As we said, the principles are almost finalized, but it's a matter of tweaking some final things. But they will be adopted soon and shared. So Alexi has now put his email. Is there any questions among the panelists before we come to the closing? Okay, if this is not the case, I propose that we give the floor to our sponsor from from Norway, Jan Ostad, for concluding remarks. He's the specialist director at the Department for Crime Prevention at the Ministry of Justice and Public Security in Norway. Mr. Ostad, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome to the Association for the Prevention of Torture for being principal organizer for this event. A very fact-filled event full of various ways into looking at this theme. brilliant for us online viewers with a mix between videos and live presentations. Very, very best practice in that sense. I am a former prosecutor now in the Ministry of Justice, and as many of the practitioners mentioned in their interventions, I am among those who find it strange to look back at the start of my career in the early 90s, working in the prosecution service in the Norwegian police. And thinking back about the low level we had, about reflections on how we acted, on how we communicated with suspects, with witnesses, and this concerns both police and prosecutors, but also judges, defense lawyers, about the acceptance of this sometimes hostile and aggressive atmosphere in courtrooms and interviewing rooms. Much has changed since then. Much has changed in Norway and other places. I think maybe the developments when it came to child interviewing has been important for breaking some barriers. We understood more about the psychology of interviewing when seeing how we could improve the interviewing of children, especially in cases of domestic violence and sexual crimes. This has been continuously refined and developed in Norway, and it paved the way for understanding the need for a more critical approach to police interviewing in general. And so we have come a long way since then, with the international principles close to finalization. Really amazing road that has been gone by practitioners and people from many different fields of academia and so on. The difficulties we saw in negotiating the paragraph in the Kyoto Declaration about this item is of course both surprising and not surprising, as we know there are still barriers to breach. We were only asking for support to conduct interviews in a more open-mannered and systematic manner. And we would, of course, have preferred a broader, more open-minded response to this, as we see as suggestions for a more efficient law enforcement worldwide. So much remains to be done, but today I am beyond anything very thankful for the stage we have reached, thanks to all of you who have been working tirelessly and effortlessly from international organizations and from your NGOs and so on, to reach where we are with the introduction, the launch of the principles coming along very soon now in May. So thank you very much from us in Norway.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ostad, for this concluding remark. I have to say that we are also very grateful for Norway for leading the negotiations of this paragraph, welcoming the principles in the Kyoto Declaration. And we are happy to have a reference to this process. That will enable further endorsements by the UN. At this stage, I would just like to say a few thank you. Of course, thank you to our co-sponsors, Norway and Switzerland, but also UNODC and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the Norwegian Center for Human Rights and the Anti-Torture Initiative, but also to all the panelists that have taken the time live this morning or this afternoon, and also the ones who have pre-recorded a video and shared it with us. And last but not least, thank you to you, the participants, for your interest and your participation in this ancillary meeting. As we have just said, this is a process. It's not the end now. It's just the beginning, but change is underway. to change this, moving away from this interrogation culture to a more interviewing technique combined with safeguards. And we have now a kind of next rendezvous in May, where we will present the principles that will be adopted by them, but also the e-learning modules by UNODC. And we hope to see you for these important next events. I wish you a very nice Sunday, rest of Sunday, and thank you in the name of all the co-organizers. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much, everyone.